Welcome to OLC 40. This is week 7. We are in class 22, unit 3, and this is assignment 37. Okay, these are all the ways to reach me. I'm in the studio right now, 1-800-465-7144. You can also reach me in the office at 1-800-667-3703. Your work can be faxed to 1-800-463-7852. You can email me any questions at jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. If you want to rewatch a YouTube video, it is at capital G, capital P, ERCY space, capital W, AHSA. Okay, so we're going to try and finish up these prepositions here. I'm covering prepositions because I find there are some of those little words that are so easy to drop, and yet they're one of the things in English that really have to be there or really changes the meaning of the sentence. Okay, so these are some prepositions of direction. These are often the kind that you think of when you're thinking about prepositions. At least it's the kind I think of, right? So words like above, across, along, among, around, at, behind, below, beside, close to, over, through, and toward. They're usually connecting a noun or a pronoun to the rest of the sentence. They're telling you where they are in relationship to the first part. So the ducks are eating. Where are they? Along the river. The girl was sitting where? Among her friends. So these will often answer the question where. These are some more common ones: up, down, between, by, inside, in, near, next to, on, onto, off, past, and under. There are all sorts more. These are just some of them, okay? There's a lot of crossover between these and prepositions of location or place. My understanding is that these ones with direction are used when we're talking about verbs that show movement, okay? And some of these are what they call idiomatic. In other words, we use them in a certain way, whether or not they make literal sense. For example, we always say you're in a car, but we're on the plane. Obviously, I'm not standing on top of the plane. We're actually in the plane, but that just kind of become the phraseology. So that's one of the tricky things with prepositions, is those can kind of trip you up. So you have to be mindful of them. This is prepositions of direction. There's more than one that can be correct depending on what's happening. So if I saw the man run, he could run towards the woman. He could run away the woman. But could he run away? No, because we'd have to say away from the woman. I saw the man run through the woman. Well, hopefully not through the woman. That would be kind of scary. But towards would definitely work. Oops. Oh, somehow I got a P in there. I apologize. He tried to grab her, but she danced by, away from, or towards. So away from. Just away doesn't quite sound right. The kitten jumped into the laundry basket, onto the laundry basket, or under the laundry basket. Well, you can't really jump under very easily. He could jump onto if it was the kind of laundry basket that had a cover, but I feel like into is probably the most likely one. The little boy climbed up the ladder on the playground, down the ladder, or across the ladder. So either up or down works. It would just depend what you see the boy actually doing. Across doesn't really work. You don't really go across ladders. You just go up or down them. I'll just use up. The keys dropped down the steps, towards the steps, and into the steps. Now, again, this kind of depends. The keys dropped down the steps. Could be if the steps were open. Towards the steps might work. Into is a bit tricky. I would say towards the steps. I think I'm going to drive to the park, into the park, or up the park. Well, I'm not going to drive up the park because the park's not going to be above the road. Into, probably not. Most people aren't going to want you to drive into a park, unless it was kind of one of those drive around ones with the fancy animals. So probably to the park. The little girls began to skip along the path to the woods, under the path to the woods, or among the path to the woods. Well, under, no, you can't be under the path. Among doesn't make any sense because among is like a word you would use when you have plural nouns. Along, it's gonna work. It took all day to hike out of the canyon, with the canyon, or over the canyon. Okay, well, we can't hike with a canyon because canyon isn't a thing you can hold. And you can't really hike over a canyon because canyon's a big hole in the ground. But we can definitely hike out of a canyon. So that was the one you would have there. Okay, so these are, oh, wait, hang on. Okay, something got mixed up there, sorry. Prepositions of manner. Prepositions of manner describe how something is done or happens. They provide information on the way the action was carried out. Common prepositions of manner include words like by, in, with, like, or as. So, for example, she writes with a pen. They came by car. He plays soccer like a professional. The children listened in silence. The book was written as a collaboration. I find that these prepositions often answer the question, how? How was it done? It will often tell you about whether it's done with a tool or a particular way, or if it's comparable to something else. Now, a smaller category within that category is called prepositions of cause and effect. They try and establish a relationship between a certain event or cause and the consequence or the effect. They're used to explain reasons or to justify actions. Some common ones are because of, due to, thanks to, from, as a result of, and out of. And as you can see here, prepositions can sometimes be a prepositional phrase where several words are acting together to create one prepositional concept. They couldn't play because of the rain. The school is closed due to snow. We won the game thanks to her excellent performance. Many people suffer from allergies. He failed as a result of not studying. He managed to succeed out of sheer determination. These prepositions indicate a cause and effect relationship, illustrating why something has occurred or giving a reason for an action. So we're going to try these out. The store is open late, Midnight Madness. Because Midnight Madness, due to Midnight Madness, or since Midnight Madness. We're going to do due to. I can't really use because Midnight Madness doesn't work. I could say because of Midnight Madness, but I can't just use because by itself there. The tire went flat because of a nail puncture, by a nail puncture, or with a nail puncture. Well, with would sound like it's happening together. It's not it. By would be more used by a tool. If I could say the nail went flat by a nail, kind of works. Because of works better though. And this kind of stuff is, again, it's idiomatic, so it's a little bit fussy. It's hard for me to say why one sounds a little bit better than the other. She dances at a professional, on a professional, or like a professional. Well, I'm hoping she doesn't dance on a professional, but she might certainly dance beautifully like a professional. I came to Montreal from train, by train, with train. So how? By. I came by the train. I raced through that exam in a man and fire. No, by a man and fire, like a man and fire. Like. That's a phrase that would mean like very speedily or very kind of almost panicky. He screamed loudly due to fear, across fear, or to fear. That one has to be due to because it's giving a reason. Across is like a location word, doesn't really work. Same thing with to, doesn't really work there either. Something the donations, we can keep the drop-in center open for another year. Thanks to the donations, from the donations, since the donations. Okay, so we have to use thanks to the donations. From and since don't really make sense there. The branches were all broken off during the wind, from the wind, past the wind. Okay, past the wind definitely doesn't work. During the wind or from the wind. From wouldn't really, I could say by the wind, but yeah, now I want to put by there. I was thinking during the wind, but then I would want to say like the wind storm. We're all broken off from the wind. Wind storm. I'm going to say that. I'm going to change it a little bit. Otherwise, I think by would make more sense, which I'm now going to add. So the next time I teach this, I remember that. Okay, so it is now Monday. We are now caught up on everything we were supposed to get done. And we are going to finish looking at the resume assignment. And I'm trying to take our time because this is an assignment I'm hoping that you're actually going to have a chance to use. Like a lot of the assignments, they're just going to me, but this is one I'm hoping you're going to get to use. Okay. So there's a little bit of material after the resume assignment that I think actually relates to the resume assignment to me. So I'm going to cover it right now just as kind of a precaution, I guess. It talks about career planning. Since you are now completing the grade 12 English course, the assumption is that you will most likely be graduating from high school soon. You have perhaps been thinking about what you will do once you receive your OSSD, which is your Ontario Secondary School Diploma. You may choose to further your education by attending college or university or some other sort of post-secondary program away from home. You may even be able to take some post-secondary courses while still living at home, for example, through Contact North. Or you may choose to stay in your home community and continue with what you've been doing, working at a current job, raising your family, whatever you're normally doing right now. You may want to look for a suitable job at home. The choice is yours to make, and there is a whole lot out there to choose from. Now, we've done some of this before. What you decide to do will depend on your interests, needs, and skills. A career is a term to cover related types of work. Now, I would say occupation for that, actually. Yeah, to me, they have this backwards. Anyways, examples of careers are hospitality, aviation, and education. An occupation or job refers to something more specific. Jobs would be like front desk clerk, pilot, and elementary teacher. And now here's like a little graphic organizer about post-secondary education. It says, what are the best sources for information? Computer, experience, print, video, or people. Some of these things is a slightly older graphic. Some of these things don't exist anymore. It really depends. The best source of information can be people, those working in the occupation, teachers or counselors who are teaching people in the occupation, professional associations, sometimes friends and family. Videos or small documentaries, public libraries, school library, TV. These days, it would be more replaced by YouTube. I would not necessarily consider those a reliable source of information. I gotta be honest, I would not go there. Print, professional journals. So for example, there are all sorts of journals that talk about teaching or nursing or almost any profession has professional journals. That's often where you're gonna find some of the most up-to-date information on those jobs. Maybe very jargony though. So if you're not in the job, it may be a bit tricky. Newspapers, books, magazines, government brochures, sure. Experience, absolutely. Volunteer work, job shadowing, work experience programs like doing co-op, like WASA does co-op and all sorts of great things. Part-time work, apprenticeships. Those are great ways to learn about a job because you're right there doing it. Computer, internet, career software, CD-ROMs. Again, the internet is definitely a way to look up things, but I would want to be careful that I was looking up like an organization, right? Like Confederation College or St. Clair College, or if I'm looking up what I'm going to do after high school, I want to make sure my stuff is reliable and current, right? We don't want to be looking at information that's 20 years old because things change a lot. Right? One of the big things as a teacher is they constantly change what we're required to teach. So I have to make sure I'm always keeping track of what's new, what's changed. That's true for a lot of different professions, right? Things like medicine, there's always new protocols, new medicines, new ways of handling things. Career planning information. Sources of information useful for career planning And the job search process include a variety of internet websites and certain print resources like books, newspapers, and magazines, which may be found at your learning center, school, band office, and other possible locations around your community. Internet websites devoted to these topics are worth checking out, and working people around your community can be a valuable source of information. You know, most people really enjoy telling people about their job, right? So if there is a lawyer in your community, by all means ask them, hey, what's it like being a lawyer? What do you like about it? What do you hate about it? Right? If there's somebody coming up who's a plumber or electrician, talk to them about it. What do they love? What did they hate? Did the education prepare them? Was it expensive? Again, most people love talking about their jobs. I won't say everybody, but most times people do not find it an annoyance. They're glad to talk to people who are interested in it. If you're visiting Sioux Lookout, they're talking about a stop to Sioux Hudson Employment Services. So I'm wondering if that used to be a place. It is no longer a place, but it is a beautiful site on the internet. We have gone there before. I'll take a look at it again in a second just to show you. It has all sorts of resources to do with cover letter writing, resume writing, and interview strategies. Now, it then lists a couple of sites to look at. I tried to find this one about life beyond high school. I could not find it. I hunted all over the site. This one, Plan Your Career with Career Quizzes, we already did already. This is one that's sort of related to life beyond high school. Let me just kind of take a quick look and show you what I mean. Again, this is where things change. Oh, see, now this is more, I'm sorry. It's really more talking about ways to finish high school, which if you're still finishing, this might be useful. Apprenticeship programs, super important, co-op, specialist high skills major, dual credit courses. If you are near the last part of your high school, you might want to consider dual credits. Dual credits is where you can take college courses and it counts for your college diploma and it counts for your high school diploma. Okay, so that's actually not what I was looking for, but it's still really helpful. I'm going to go to the Sioux Hudson employment site just because I want to show you. I know we looked at this before, but I think then I was looking at how to do looking at the job ads rather than the resources. Hang on a second. Oh, maybe it still exists. Oh, you know what? It looks like it still exists in the Centennial Center. So maybe it is worth a stop. Maybe give them a phone call first, make sure. Okay, job seekers, employer services, getting started. Hang on a sec. Okay, I'm going to go to tools. Okay, cover letters. Oh, it won't let me do this because I got to log in. Okay, so maybe you need to make it like a sign up to them first, and then you can use the tools. But if you saw, there was a tool for doing resumes as well. So that might be worth looking at. Because this is an ongoing career-oriented site, I would think that most of the information they have is going to be really up to date. Might be a really good one. And as always, of course, in case you haven't seen it, the current job site is the most useful thing. The nice thing about it too is it'll tell you what city it's in. Because it could be Sioux Lookout, but it might be Dryden, might be Thunder Bay, maybe it's a remote, maybe it's working in a specific reserve. This has kind of been the most helpful thing to me and many people I know looking for work. Absolutely worth checking out if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet. Okay. Okay, so I know we talked about this before, but I kind of want a quick review because we weren't really finished it. Creating a resume, this is worth 30 marks, 15 for your rough copy, 15 for your final copy. Remember, you need to have your name, address. It can be centered at the top or located in the left-hand margin. Do not put it on your right-hand margin. We always read left to right in English. If you put it on the right-hand margin, it's just like the last thing your eyes go to. Your objective is something specific you're hoping for. We practiced objectives last time. When you're listing information in the education and work experience, always start with the most recent work and go backwards in time. Okay. For education, you would, if you've only done the high school, you would just list high school. If you've already gone on and done college, you could list that. Sometimes people put education and training, and then they would be able to put things like first aid, heavy machinery training, driver's license. Like there's a lot of jobs that you have to have a driver's license for. So it's legitimate to have it in education and training if it is applied to that job. Same thing with work experience. You start at the most recent job. Like if you're at a job right now, that goes first, and you go backwards in time. List skills you have. Now they're talking about general skills like leadership and organization. Be careful here that you have skills that you could back up. Like if you say you've got leadership skills, but you've never been in a job where you were the boss or the supervisor, then you don't really have a way to back that up. So I wouldn't list it. I think this is a great place to list specific skills like knowing certain computer programs, or this can be a spot where you would list your first aid if you wanted to as well. List any 3 interests. Try to tie them into the job you're looking for. So if you're looking for, a job at a bookstore, an interest in reading would be a good interest to mention, for example. List 3 references if you can. That's typical. Otherwise, 2. It needs to be a person who knows you well and would say good things about you. High school teachers, former employers, supervisors. Make sure to include the person's name, job title, address, telephone numbers. Now, normally you do not list your family members or relatives. I'm going to say this is an exception. I know some people have big families. You may have had like an aunt or an uncle or a grandmother as your supervisor at a last job. If they're a relative, but they also were your supervisor or your boss, it's legitimate to mention them. Okay, that's really important to mention. Okay, but you wouldn't mention like your mom unless you worked for your mom in like the family business. Okay. Here is the basic setup. This is very bare bones. We talked this a little bit before. For example, for youth counselor, all they wrote was directed recreational activities. There are so many more things you probably did for youth counselor. I brainstormed as many as I could think of. I wouldn't include all of these. I might pick 3 or 4. And I would list them down like this rather than across like this. This way kind of catches your eye, and the first thing you see is the skill mentioned. Okay. Other than that, it's fine. It has all the categories we need. You have to have your name and address. You have to have an objective, education, work experience, skills, interests, and references. Okay, so this is the part I wanted to talk about. Was you can do your resume in absolutely whatever word processing program you're comfortable with, because everybody's familiar with different ones. Microsoft Word is absolutely fine to use if you have it. Google Docs is fine. You have access to it as a WASA student. It also contains some resume samples, so that can be helpful if you want to set up the formatting. If you have a Mac, maybe you want to use Pages or Word, Microsoft Word for Mac. WordPerfect, if you have WordPerfect. Whatever you're used to using, use that. Because you're comfortable with it, it's going to make it the workout best. We also talked about Canva. That can be a great site to get some nice formatting as well. I'm going to walk you through how to do this in Google Docs, just because I wasn't sure how much people have used it to do anything other than just write, right? There's a bunch of formatting stuff, and we don't necessarily normally do formatting when we're doing a bunch of paragraphing, but there's a lot of formatting stuff in resumes. So I want to make sure people knew how to do that. Okay, how to get to Google Docs. To find it, first of all, log into your Google account. So normally it doesn't in this screen for some reason. You would have your little circle with your initial, and then usually right next to it is these little set of dots, and those dots represent the apps. And then if you click on it, all your apps open up. Now, I have some apps that you don't. For example, Classroom. I don't know if you guys have Classroom. And I find that as you use things, they move around. So click on the blue Google Docs icon and come up. If it's not on this screen, see how there's like a little line there? You can pull this down. Maybe it's down near here, but it's a pretty common program. It should be near the front. So you would do that next. Hang on a sec. Okay. Once you click on that, this screen will come up and it shows you a blank screen, a letter, resume. If you want to find templates to other things, you'd click on here and it would show you different things. This is kind of the simple resume that they did. I did use it. I had a few problems because it doesn't have exactly the same categories that we asked for. And I was trying to add a category and it didn't want to let me do it. But I found a way around that. So you can just do all your own formatting. That is 100% fine. But if you're uncomfortable doing that and wanted to use a template, well, here's what I kind of did. Okay, so you open up a resume template you like, select all the words with the cursor, copy it, open up a blank document, paste the format there. And for whatever reason, I found that seemed to undo all the formatting limits. So I'm going to walk you through and show you. Hopefully it still works when, like it did last time. I'm going to flip on here and go here. Okay, so this one is called Spearmint. I presume because it's green. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color before I do anything else because I really don't like the green. All right, and all I do is go up here, see the A. That tells you what color your words are, and I'm just going to pick black. It's usually best to just go with standard black. A lot of times people are going to photocopy something, so the gray might look really nice on your computer screen, but it might not always copy really well. And sometimes the person seeing it might not even see, oh, what happened there? Well, I'm going to hit my handy undo button because I don't know what happened. The person who's doing the hiring might not even see it. Let me just see if I can. Okay, so this is an example of the kind of thing that sometimes happens when you're using pre-made documents. But it's nice and clean. I really like how they did it. So I'm going to kind of just copy it. I just clicked on the gray, copy it. And then I'm going to go here and open a blank document. Okay, here's my blank document. And then I'm just going to dump everything I just did into there. Normally that seems to solve some of the problems. And then I would start revising. Okay, so I would put my name here. Now, let's say I don't like the font they use. I want it to look different. Okay, well, just click on it and run your cursor along it to select it and go up here and pick a different font. Maybe I could do that one. That's a lot. You don't want to do anything weird. Like that's kind of fun if I was doing a poster, but it doesn't really look good for a resume. You also don't want to use Comic Sans. It's got a bad reputation just because it's used so often for children's stuff. Arial is one of the most common. Calibre is good. What else is really common? Verdana is very common. Don't use Roboto. Times New Roman looks a little bit old-fashioned, but it could be good. I'll switch Times New Roman just so you can see it. It's got those fancy serifs. I think we've talked before about serifs. Now, let's say I didn't want this in this section. Okay, I would click on all of that. Maybe I don't want it to line up with the margin. Maybe I want it to be centered. I go over to here where it says align and indent, and I click onto the middle, and now it's centered. I like that format. Not everybody does. Let's see here. They've put skills first. I don't think that's where we had ours. I think we had objective up there, but it's easy enough to go in and just change it and say, sorry, they had theirs as, here we go. They used ours all caps. So I just change it. That's easy enough. If I want to add a new category, let me say I wanted to add, I probably wouldn't use awards. I might put skills there. skills there. If I wanted to, I could also click down and now I can add, let's say, oops, interests. Okay, so it's actually, this is good. Interests. Okay, it doesn't look like this. Well, this, if I take a look, it's at 14 font and it's bolded. So I'm going to grab that text. I'm going to turn it to 14 so it's the same size. And I'm going to bold it so it's the same style. So that's what I'm saying in terms of being able to add categories. This is really useful. Now, this is a little bit big and it's kind of running off my page. I'm going to select the main stuff and I'm going to put it at 12. 12 is the most common font. And I like that that works. Okay. This seems like it should be up higher to me. If I was doing this, I would really want to change that margin. Hang on a sec. Oh, page setup. So in file, if you go down here to page setup and click on it. Okay, talks about margins. It's giving you a margin of 1 up top. Looks bigger than 1 to be honest, but I'm going to say 0.75 and see how that looks. You're welcome to keep the 1. It just doesn't look right. You know what I might do too? I might make the city kind of, hang on, 1 row like that and just kind of get rid of 1. Again, I'm going to click on there and just hit center again and it will recenter it. Make that a little bit smaller. I could make this a little bit smaller too if I wanted to. Anyways, here I would put my objective, my experience. Here's where I would put the dates. This is just kind of holding words and education, skills, interests, all those kind of good things. So this is the way to do it. I think over here. Okay, margins. Normal margins are fine. The 111, that's pretty normal. That's what it would look like, more or less. Slightly wide can look really good too, right? If you take a look at this document, it's kind of edged over to the side, and yet there isn't as much information over here. If you make a slightly wider margin, let me show you what I mean. Page setup. This is the left hand. What if I make it 1.5? And it should all slide over. Oh, wait, what happened there? Oh, it disappeared. That's so strange. Okay. All right. Not sure I did wrong there. Okay. Now, so this kind of thing happens, right? I'm used to using this and it still kind of is messing around with me a little bit. So don't stress if as you're playing around with things, it does this. Okay. So I'm going to have to just go back to the same font, the same margin. If I set it up all myself, I could probably play with this slightly more. And if you're good at doing formatting, by all means do that. Okay. Oh, and now it just decided to disappear. I don't know why. All right. So sorry. And then narrow. I don't like narrow for the most part, unless you're using a resume that's already set up as narrow and it looks good. Be careful. Again, it goes back in part to how it looks, but also, again, if it's on a photocopier, it's really easy for it to be turned slightly and you could actually lose some of your information, which will be frustrating for the human resources person who's looking at it. And the recent stat I heard was that most human resources spend about 6 seconds looking at each resume. If it's hard to read, you're using up some of their 6 seconds and not in a good way. So probably stick to normal most times. Wide can be useful though. To set up the alignment. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. Text can be aligned to the left-hand margin. So here's an example of text. It's pretty easy. Here it's centered. For a resume, you would never line it up to the right-hand margin. You might do that for something like an ad or some sort of art project, but it just doesn't work for a resume. Now, let's say I started with this. I didn't like it. So I select it. It all turns gray. I go up here and I go to the middle. Okay. Now, we're not really going to use this. Puts it at the top, which is where we want it. Occasionally, there might be times where you want to put it in the middle, or rare times you put it on the end. Because this is a resume, you really are just going to stick with top, and I'm going to put it back to the side. So could be to the side, could be centered depending on what you're writing about. I think the margin looks best myself. You can also set up your own formatting. Like they had their format as being bolded, and that is totally fine. It looks great, I think, but you're welcome to change it if you don't like it. You can use bold. This is bolded, like it's extra dark. Italics is when they kind of slide it all onto its side a little bit. You can make the subheadings a slightly bigger font. That's a really common way to kind of set off the subheadings. You can write it all in capitals. Again, that's another great way to set off the subheadings. You can sometimes try a slightly different font, but if it's too different, it looks too fancy. The only time that would be the case is if you're in like a creative profession, like graphic artist or something, then maybe you might want to play around with that. But otherwise, stick to the really basic fonts. Most people want to see what they're used to, basically. You can also underline the subheadings, and you can do several of those at once, right? Like in our sample ones, they had it bolded and they used it all caps. Okay, so I included a few more samples of some resumes. Here, instead of professional summary, we'd have our objective instead. Here's their work history, skills, education. Instead of portfolio here, we could put interests. You don't need the little bars, and I would be cautious as a female about putting pink bars, I gotta be honest. You could put a very, very light gray bar, though. That would look really nice. If you knew that the person 100% was going to be looking at it in color, then use color. But otherwise, I'd be very cautious about using color in a resume because there's just too many times where it's going to get printed off in black and white on a photocopier. This one is the same kind of thing. Here it's blank. They've put long lines across. I don't know how I feel about that, but it is one way to set off the different sections. And they've put the name of the section to the side. Now, the nice thing about that is it gives you a little more space this way. Plus, it uses up some of your room on the width. Remember, we said before there was kind of a big empty spot on this side. They've kind of solved that by giving it a job titles or section titles there, basically. This is another one. This one, they've done the same kind of thing, but they have still given us space for it. They've also added little icons there. I don't know how I feel about the icons, but it's a possibility. I do like the icons up here where it's talking about LinkedIn, Twitter, that kind of thing. Awards and honors, obviously, if you've gotten awards, by all means, put them there, but it is also a spot where you could put interests for us. For languages, they've got these little bars. I am not crazy about these, but lots of people are. It's kind of a way of showing how fluent you are. Here, they've also written the words excellent, advanced, intermediate, bilingual. I wouldn't include a language that you aren't at least intermediate at. But this is a great way to show languages. There are all sorts of jobs where they want you to be able to speak Ojibwe or Ojibwe or both. And having that language fluently can be a real bonus to getting that job. Okay, here is an example of a rubric by which I would mark things, okay? So make sure you're following resume formatting. There's all sorts of room for small changes, but it wouldn't sound like a story and it wouldn't sound like a job ad. It still has to sound or look visually like a resume. Make sure your format shows, your resume shows that you're aware of the audience, the purpose, and the tone. So the audience is who you're trying to get to hire you. Yes, technically I'm the audience, but for the purposes of this assignment, imagine that you're writing to somebody you actually think is going to hire you, not just to me. What's your purpose? To get this job. What's your tone? Your tone is generally going to be really formal. For a resume, that's probably the most formal you're going to be outside of, say, writing legal letters. Word choices. You want to make sure your word choices show active verbs, consistent verb tense. Don't start writing some things in past tense, some things in present tense. And obviously, you would not want to use future tense for jobs because that doesn't make any sense. And good description of what you did. You want them to be able to literally picture you doing that job. Rough copy meets the assignment criteria and is handwritten. One thing I've been noticing is sometimes for the rough copy, people are thinking, well, it's rough, so I can kind of do whatever. That's not really the way we want you to think about it. Rough copy is like your first attempt at doing the assignment. It's just that we know that nobody gets it right the first time, right? Not even professional writers write everything perfectly the first time. So it still needs to be in a paragraph format. It still needs to be in sentences. It has to be handwritten. So your rough copy should still be like a reasonably close try at this assignment. Okay. Your good copy has to show evidence of revisions in the word choice, the grammar, the phrasing. So it should not be exactly the same, except just that it's typewritten. I've had a few examples of that. You need to make sure that you've shown that you've taken the time to make changes, pick great words, pick great verbs, that kind of thing. Your good copy also has to be edited for spelling, punctuation, capitalization mistakes. This is so important for a resume, especially. It is the kind of thing that people will sometimes like, oh, there's a spelling mistake. That's it. We're not even looking at them any further, which is crazy because obviously one spelling mistake doesn't mean you wouldn't be a good employee. But if they have a stack of resumes to look through, they will start weeding things out for very small errors. And you don't want that to happen, right? So take the time, use the tools, have a friend look it over, right? By all means, do everything you can to make sure that your resume is mistake free. Okay, this is the overall marking sheet for lesson 15. It's very general. That's why I went over the more specific rubric, okay? The first assignment we just did is creating the resume. And then we're going to look at using an organizer to write a paragraph. And then we are going to look at our journal entry. Okay, we have a little bit of time left. I want to try and finish this up. Looking at different types of conditional sentences, we've been trying to look at the grammar for English. I find sometimes it's really tiny, finicky things that are tripping people up. So I'm kind of talking about some of the finicky stuff. There are 4 different types of conditional sentences in English. Each one expresses a degree of probability that a situation will occur or could have occurred under certain circumstances. So we have 0 conditional, first conditional, second conditional, and third conditional sentences. 0 conditional sentences express general truths. So one event is always going to cause a certain result. Both clauses must be in the simple present tense, and they often use the combination if then. Sometimes they use when then. Sometimes they don't use the word then. It's just kind of implied rather than written down. So for example, if the assignments aren't done, then you fail the course. But you could also say if the assignments aren't done, you fail the course, and people get that you mean then. If you buy some groceries, we can eat. When the sun rises, a new day is here. So 0 conditions means there are no conditions on this. If the first thing happens, the second thing will happen for sure. First condition is where it will probably happen, but it's not 100% certain. So in this case, we use the present tense verb for the if clause, but for the main clause, the one that usually starts with the word then, we write it in the future tense, and we show that by using the word will. So for example, if you sleep, you will feel better in the future, right? If you take care of the truck better, it will last longer. If children play more sports, they will be healthier. If the city added a stop sign to the corner, there will be fewer accidents. The if clause can come second in the sentence as well, although that may make the meaning less clear. I don't know if that really does make the meaning less clear. You will be healthier if you eat more nutritious food. You will pass the course if you work hard on your assignments. Yeah, I don't think it makes the meaning less clear. I think they're both used pretty commonly. Second conditional sentences. This is for, I like this one. This one is for expressing outcomes that are very unrealistic or unlikely to happen. They're almost like fantasy sentences. So the if clause uses simple past tense. So like if something had happened, then it uses what would be happening now different. So it uses the simple present tense plus a helping verb. These are the helping verbs that express probability, right? Could, should, would, might. And they help to express how unrealistic the outcome is. If I won the lottery, I would quit my job forever. If I became prime minister, I could run this country properly. If I had $1 billion, I might end poverty as we know it. Okay. So these are those wild cards, those imagining kind of sentences. Third conditional is talking about how it would be different right now in the present if we'd done things differently in the past. So the if clause will use the past perfect, which is basically had in the past tense. Had eaten, had told, had given. Then the main clause uses those probability helping verbs like would, could, should, might, plus the word have, plus the past participle or past tense. All of that to describe the theoretical situation. Now that sounds so wordy, but when I say the examples, you'll see what I mean. Would have gone, could have eaten, should have done, might have finished. Do you see the pattern there? Once you kind of develop your sense of that pattern, they become very easy to write. If you had told me you needed a ride, oh, I fixed this before and then I fixed it in the other one, sorry. You needed a ride, I would have picked you up. If you had given me the money, I could have paid the bills. So it's kind of looking back and going, if you'd just done things differently, it'd be different now. Okay, punctuation. You basically use the comma after the if clause before the word then, if you have the word then, or before the next clause starts, usually right before the subject noun or the subject pronoun comes. So if you had asked me for help, then I could have been there. If I had wings, comma, I would fly around the world. If the train hits you, comma, you are dead. Now, if you reverse the order, if you put the if clause last and the then clause first, you don't need a comma. And usually you don't end up using the word then. I could have been there if you had asked me for help. I would fly around the world if I had wings. You are dead if the train hits you. Okay. So commas after the if clause, no commas if the if clause comes last. This is just a little tiny table showing you all through. Zero conditional will happen. First conditional will probably happen. Second conditional is unlikely or impossible to happen. Third conditional, could have happened differently. Okay. Zero conditional uses present tense in both clauses. First conditional uses simple present tense and then super simple future tense. For second conditional, we have the simple past tense for the if clause, and the then clause uses a probability helping verb and simple present tense. The last one is the most complicated. It's the one where we have had plus a simple past tense, and then the then clause uses a probability helping verb plus have plus a simple past tense. Okay, so let's try. We've got like a minute left, so we'll try a few. What are they trying to express? If they say, if the meat is good, we will eat it. Is that, sorry, they didn't say we eat it. Will happen, probably happen, unlikely to happen, or could have happened. There's no will. Because of that, sorry, that doesn't make any sense, I know, but because there's no future, if it's just doing both in present tense, it means it's definitely going to happen. It absolutely will happen. Let's see if I can just try to underline that. Oh, there we go. If the check comes in, we will go out to dinner. So that will is telling you it's probably going to happen, right? That's when we use the will word. If I turned into a dinosaur, I would terrorize the town. Okay, so that's one of those crazy ones where it's pretty unlikely to happen. Probably not going to turn into a dinosaur today. Be cool if I did, but probably won't. And then this last one, if I had known you were in town, I would have invited you over. So could have happened, and I'm going to actually add a word there, could have happened differently. It's talking about, hey, let's do this differently next time, or you should have done this differently in the past, basically, is the idea for that one. Okay, I don't want to go any further. That goes on to the next assignment. Tomorrow, we will talk about probably the last two assignments in the unit. If you need any help with this, by all means, give me a phone call or shoot me a little email. Be happy to talk to you. Thank you so much for showing up today, and I hope you enjoy doing this assignment.